Welcome back to part 3 of this coding course. In this lesson, you'll learn about functions and actually run some code. Let's jump into TIC80 to get started. Now, a function is basically a section of code that is reusable. Let's look at an example to figure out more. First, like the last video, I'm going to create a variable named age and set its value to a number like 30. Now we're going to make a function. To make a function, simply type out the word function and you should see it turn orange, and that's a good thing. The reason why it turns orange is because it's a special word in Lua. After this function word, we add a space and then the name of the function. I'm going to call mine grow, but you can name yours whatever you want. Right after the name, we put an opening parentheses and a closing parentheses. I know this is confusing, but in a future video I'll explain what this does. And by the way, if you want to see that video, please subscribe. Now we've created a function. Anything we put after this line will be part of that function. In my function, I'm going to add just one line that adds 1 to age's value. Now there's a problem with this code. When a computer reads this function word, it'll think that all the code after it is part of the function, even if we write code way down here. That's not what I want. I want this one line to be part of the function. To do that, I just need to tell the computer that this function ends by adding n to the next line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is optional but highly recommended. It's to indent your code. Because this line is part of my function, I'm just going to indent this line. Now you know how to make a function. To use the function though, just type the name of the function and again add the parentheses. This is called calling the function. Now I want you to pause the video and guess what the value of this bottom age is. If you guess 31, you're correct. Now that might seem confusing, but this is the only time it runs. When we create a function, it doesn't run. It only gets run when we call it. That's why we get 31. Now up to this point, we still haven't actually run any of this code. So how do we run the code? Simply go to the terminal and type the command run and hit enter. But now we get an error. Function tick isn't found. TIC80 comes by default with a bunch of useful functions that we'll continue to learn about through this course. One of these functions is the tick function. And in every cart we make, TIC80 requires us to use this function. And this function is special because TIC80 automatically runs this function 60 times per second. This will be super useful later when we start animating things with code. But for now, let's just create that empty tick function. Now the only problem we have is that if we run this code, it'll freeze the screen. This is because this tick function will just continue to be called 60 times per second forever. To fix that, we can add another one of TIC80's built-in functions, exit. This will stop the tick function the first time it runs. Now if we try to run the code, it works, but it doesn't show us anything. This is where another built-in function becomes useful, trace. Trace writes whatever we put in the parentheses to the terminal. So if we add age in here and run it, it logs out the value of age. Now I definitely recommend that you just play around with writing functions and using functions and calling functions, and also watch the next video in this series.